The heavy scent of burning firewood and roasted plantain still lingered in the night air, but Amara could not focus on her hunger. She pressed her small, trembling frame against the rusted iron water drums behind the main house. The red dust of the village compound clung to her bare feet. She held her breath, her heart beating so loudly she feared it would wake the sleeping roosters. Just a few feet away, standing near the sacred ancestral well, was Uncle Femi. He was Chief Olayinka's younger brother, a man whose expensive lace agbada could not hide the rot in his soul. Beside him stood his arrogant son, Jaid, nervously looking around the dark, isolated courtyard. "Papa, are you sure about this?" Jaid whispered, his voice shaking in the quiet night. "If anyone catches us near the chief's drinking well..." "Shut your mouth, foolish boy," Uncle Femi hissed, delivering a sharp slap to the back of Jaid's head. "Do you want to remain a beggar while my brother gives our ancestral yam farms to that useless village trust? Or worse, to his runaway son in Lagos? The lawyer is coming tomorrow morning. If Olayinka signs that new will, we are finished. We will have nothing." Amara pressed both hands over her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. Chief Olayinka had taken her in when she was just a hungry orphan, begging near the Onitsha market. He treated her with dignity, paying for her late mother's hospital bills when nobody else cared. He was a good man, a respected elder who always judged village disputes with fairness and wisdom. But his health had been failing lately, leaving him bedridden and vulnerable. Uncle Femi reached into the deep pocket of his trousers and pulled out a small, dark glass vial. Even in the dim, silvery moonlight, the liquid inside looked thick and unnatural. "It is very simple," Uncle Femi muttered, his eyes gleaming with a wicked, desperate greed. "We pour these drops into the well tonight. The maid always fetches his morning drinking water from here. By the time the sun is high, my stubborn brother will clutch his chest and go to join our ancestors. It will look like a natural heart attack. Then I become the head of the Adebayo family. We get the lands, the money, everything." Amara's blood ran cold. Poison. They were going to kill the chief. The very water she drew for him every morning to take his blood pressure medicine would become his death sentence. She always knew Uncle Femi was a greedy man who secretly stole from the family's yam harvests. But murder? This was a dark abomination against the gods and the earth. She had to warn the chief. She had to run to the village elders before the sun came up. But as she slowly shifted her weight to sneak back toward the servant quarters, her heel caught the edge of an empty metal tin left carelessly by the cooks. Clang. The loud metallic scrape echoed through the silent, sleeping compound like a gunshot. Uncle Femi froze instantly, the glass vial hovering just inches above the open well. He slowly turned his head toward the water drums, his face twisting into a mask of pure, murderous rage. He pulled a heavy flashlight from his agbada and clicked it on. The blinding yellow beam sliced through the darkness, sweeping directly toward the narrow gap where Amara was hiding. "Who is there?" Femi barked, his voice dropping into a deadly, quiet growl. "Come out before I drag you out." The blinding beam of Uncle Femi's flashlight swept directly toward the rusted water drums where Amara crouched. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs, the metallic clang of the tin she had just kicked still echoing in the dead of night. She had just uncovered a wicked abomination. Uncle Femi and his son, Jaid, were about to poison Chief Olayinka's well to steal the family's ancestral lands. Now, death was shining its light right at her. Amara squeezed her eyes shut, praying silently to the god of orphans. Femi's heavy footsteps crunched on the red earth. "Who is sneaking around here?" he growled, raising his walking stick. Suddenly, a loud, panicked bleat shattered the tension. A stray village goat, startled by the sudden light, leaped out from behind the drums and scurried away into the yam patches. Jaid let out a shaky breath. "Papa, you see? It is just a useless compound goat looking for cassava peels. Let us finish this and go inside." Femi lowered the flashlight. "Foolish animal," he muttered. Amara held her breath, listening to the horrifying sound of the glass vial popping open. Splash. The deadly liquid hit the deep waters of the well. "It is done," Femi whispered. "By tomorrow evening, I will be the new chief of the Adebayo family." Amara remained frozen in the dirt until dawn painted the sky in shades of bruised purple. The morning air was thick with the smell of damp earth and distant cooking fires, but she felt only cold dread in her bones. She was just a humble housemaid, a poor girl from a remote village who sent every naira she earned back to her crippled grandmother. She had no power. But Chief Olayinka was the only father figure she had ever known. When she was starving at the Onitsha market, he had given her a home and dignity. She could not let him die. Before the roosters finished their morning chorus, Amara was in the outdoor kitchen boiling fresh lemongrass. Usually, she drew water from the ancestral well for the chief's blood pressure medicine. Today, she had quietly slipped out the back gate, walking 2 extra miles with a heavy bucket on her head to fetch clean water from the distant community borehole. She carried the silver tray into Chief Olayinka's grand bedroom. The old man lay under a heavy woven blanket, his chest rising with a weak breath. "Amara, my daughter," the chief rasped, offering a tired, gentle smile. "The smell of your tea brings life back to my old bones." "Good morning, Papa," Amara said, her hands trembling as she poured the hot, clean water into his mug. "Drink, Papa. It will give you strength for when the lawyer arrives." Before the chief could take a sip, the heavy mahogany door swung open. Uncle Femi strode into the room, wearing a crisp white lace agbada, a fake, sorrowful smile plastered on his face. Jide trailed closely behind him, his eyes darting nervously toward the water jug on the tray. "Ah, my dear brother, I came to check on your health," Femi boomed. But as he stepped closer to the bedside table, his eyes locked onto the plastic bucket Amara had used to refill the jug. His smile vanished instantly. He stared at the floor, his face twisting with sharp, sudden suspicion. He looked at Amara, his voice dropping into a dangerous, accusing whisper. "There is no red clay on the bottom of this bucket. You did not fetch this from our ancestral well. Amara, where did you get the water you are giving to my brother?" The heavy scent of camphor in Chief Olayinka's bedroom suddenly felt suffocating. Amara stood frozen, the silver tray trembling in her hands. Uncle Femi's calculating eyes remained locked on the clean plastic bucket. He knew the ancestral well was surrounded by thick red clay. Any bucket placed there would carry rust-colored stains. Amara's bucket was completely spotless. Just hours ago, Amara had watched this greedy man pour a vial of deadly poison into the family well to secure his inheritance before the lawyer arrived. Now his piercing gaze felt like a blade against her throat. "Are you deaf, girl?" Femi barked. He stepped closer, his expensive white lace agbada rustling ominously. "Where did you get this water?" Chief Olayinka shifted weakly under his woven blanket. "Femi, leave the poor girl alone. She brings me my morning tea." "It matters, my brother." Femi spun around, forcing a fake, concerned smile. "You are a chief. You are vulnerable. We cannot have servants fetching dirty water when we have a sacred well in our own compound. Who knows what village sickness she is bringing into this house?" Amara swallowed hard, her mind racing. She was just a poor maid, but she had the survival instincts of a girl raised by the harsh streets of Onitsha. "The rope, uncle," she stammered, keeping her eyes respectfully lowered. "The rope for the compound well snapped early this morning. I did not want Papa to miss his medicine, so I ran to the community borehole." Jide, standing nervously behind his father, let out a loud exhale. "Ah, the rope. Yes, it was very old, Papa. She speaks the truth." Femi shot his son a look so murderous that Jide instantly shut his mouth. Femi turned back to Amara. He did not believe her. He could smell her fear. He walked to the bedside table and with a swift, deliberate motion knocked the mug of freshly brewed lemongrass tea onto the floor. The hot liquid splashed over the polished tiles, the ceramic shattering into pieces. "Clumsy girl," Femi sneered, his eyes burning with a dark fire. He looked down at his brother, his voice smooth and deceptive. "Do not worry, Olayinka. I will make sure you get the proper water from our forefathers' earth, water that will make you sleep peacefully." Femi turned to Amara, his large hand suddenly shooting out to grip her wrist. His fingers dug into her skin like iron claws. "Come with me to the courtyard," he whispered, his voice dropping so the old man could not hear. "We will find a new rope. You will fetch my brother's water right now." Amara's heart hammered violently against her ribs. She tried to pull away, but Femi's grip was unyielding. He dragged her out of the grand bedroom, pushing her into the harsh morning sun. The red dust swirled around their bare feet as he forced her toward the edge of the poisoned well. Femi picked up a spare bucket and shoved it hard against her chest. His face twisted into a cruel, wicked grin. "Fetch the water, you little rat," he hissed, his eyes gleaming with deadly intent. "And since you care so much about my brother's health, you will drink a full cup of it right here in front of me before we take it inside." The scorching morning sun beat down on the red earth of the Adebayo compound, but Amara felt only freezing terror in her bones. Just moments ago, Uncle Femi had noticed her clean water bucket in Chief Olayinka's bedroom, realizing the humble maid had bypassed the poisoned ancestral well. Now, the ruthless man had dragged her outside into the sweltering heat, demanding she drink from the very well he had contaminated with deadly venom the night before. Femi's eyes were cold pits of absolute greed. He shoved her toward the stone ledge. "Drop the bucket down, Amara," he commanded, his voice a dangerous growl. "Draw the water. If it is so pure, you will bless it with your own lips first." Jide nervously wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Papa, let us just chase her away. If she dies here, her spirit will haunt us. It will bring the police." "Shut your mouth, coward," Femi barked, his expensive white lace agbada billowing in the dusty wind. "She knows too much. Drink it. Now." Amara's rough hands shook violently as she lowered the bucket. The rusted rope creaked like a dying animal. The damp smell of moss and tainted water rose from the dark depths. She pulled it up, her muscles straining. Femi handed her a battered tin cup. "Fill it." Tears carved clean lines through the red dust on Amara's face. If she drank, the venom would stop her heart before noon. If she refused, Femi would surely drown her himself. She slowly raised the cup, her lips trembling, silently praying to the god of orphans to protect her crippled grandmother back in the village. Honk! Honk! The blaring horn of a heavy vehicle suddenly echoed outside the towering iron gates. A man's voice shouted loudly in thick pidgin, "Oya, open gate! Barrister Mensa Don arrived from Lagos!" Femi froze. The lawyer was early. Femi cursed bitterly under his breath. He snatched the tin cup from Amara's trembling hands and slapped it away, sending the poisoned water splashing into the dry dirt. He grabbed Amara by the collar of her faded Ankara dress, pulling her face inches from his. His breath reeked of bitter cola and pure malice. "Listen to me, you useless village rat," Femi hissed. "If you breathe one word of this to the lawyer or my brother, I will send my boys to your village. Your grandmother will burn inside her thatch hut. Do you hear me?" Amara nodded frantically, choking on her sobs. Femi shoved her to the ground, kicking up a cloud of red dust, and rushed toward the main gates with Jide to welcome the wealthy lawyer. Amara lay in the dirt, gasping for air. She had survived, but Chief Olayinka was still in grave danger. Femi would try to force the lawyer to make him the sole heir today. She remembered Femi's deep trouser pocket where he kept the poison. If she could find the empty vial in his room, she could show it to Barrister Mensa as proof of his wicked plot. Wiping her tears, she scrambled to her feet and sneaked into the guest wing. Femi's room smelled heavily of expensive cologne and cheap gin. She frantically searched his leather traveling bag. Buried underneath his traditional clothes, her fingers brushed against hard glass. She pulled it out, but it was not just the empty vial of poison. Wrapped tightly around it was a stack of legal documents bearing Chief Olayinka's perfectly forged signature. Suddenly, the heavy mahogany door creaked shut behind her. The brass lock clicked into place. "Looking for something, little thief," a cold voice sneered from the shadows. The heavy brass lock clicking shut echoed like a death sentence in the stifling air of the guest room. Amara's breath hitched in her throat. She clutched the empty poison vial and the forged land deeds tightly against her faded Ankara dress. Just minutes ago, the blaring horn of the arriving lawyer had saved her from drinking toxic well water at Uncle Femi's cruel hands. She thought she had found the perfect weapon to expose him, but her desperate search for proof had led her straight into a trap. Stepping out from the shadows of the heavy velvet curtains was Jide. He had not gone to the gates to welcome the lawyer after all. He spun the brass room key around his finger a nervous, arrogant smirk glistening on his sweaty face. The rickety ceiling fan whirred above, doing nothing to chase away the thick stench of cheap gin and expensive cologne. "My father warned me about you," Jide sneered, taking a slow step forward. "He said you were a stubborn village rat who did not know her place. He told me to wait here, just in case you tried to play the hero." "Jide, please," Amara begged, her voice trembling as she pressed her back against the wall. "Your uncle is a good man. When your father gambled away his money in Lagos, Chief Olayinka paid your school fees. How can you help murder your own blood?" Jide's smirk vanished instantly, replaced by a dark, ugly scowl. "Do not speak of things you do not understand, Maid. This is not just about the yam farms. This is about blood and stolen destiny." He paced the room, the anger of old family grievances boiling over. 30 years ago, my grandfather left the family's transport business to both of them. But Olayinka told the village elders my father was a reckless drunk. He stole my father's inheritance, took the chieftaincy title, and banished us to the city. He even married the woman my father loved. Papa swore to the gods he would take back everything Olayinka stole, even if he had to send him to the grave to do it. Amara stared at him in absolute horror. The greed ran deeper than she could have ever imagined. It was a generational rot, a festering wound of deep jealousy and vengeance. "You will not succeed," Amara whispered fiercely, backing away toward the large window. "I have the forged will. I have the vial. I will scream until Barrister Mensah hears me. He is a man of the law. He will have you both thrown in Kirikiri prison." Jide threw his head back and laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that chilled Amara to the bone. "Scream for him, Amara. Scream for the barrister," Jide taunted, spreading his arms wide. "Do you know why Barrister Mensah arrived early? Because my father sent him 2 million naira in a Ghana must-go bag last night. Who do you think drafted these fake documents you're holding? The lawyer is eating from my father's palm. They are just sitting in the parlor right now, waiting for Olayinka's heart to finally stop." Amara's blood ran completely cold. The lawyer was corrupt. The entire system was rigged. There was no one coming to save the chief. "Now give me the vial," Jide commanded, dropping his voice to a dangerous growl as he lunged forward. Survival instinct took over. Amara grabbed a heavy glass ashtray from the vanity table and hurled it with all her might. It smashed into Jide's shoulder, sending him stumbling backward with a loud shout of pain. Amara scrambled toward the window, tearing the curtains aside to call for help from the compound guards. But as she looked down into the dusty red courtyard below, the scream died in her throat. Standing right beneath the window, looking up at her with a deadly knowing smile, was Uncle Femi. Beside him stood a tall man in a sharp black suit, Barrister Mensah. And in the corrupt lawyer's hand was a medical syringe filled with the exact same dark, unnatural liquid from the poisoned well. The afternoon sun baked the red earth of the Adebayo compound, but Amara's blood ran colder than ice. Standing by the locked guest room window, her chest heaved as she stared down at the courtyard. Moments ago, she had discovered the forged land deeds and empty poison vial in Uncle Femi's bag, only to be ambushed by his son, Jide. Now, seeing Uncle Femi and the corrupt Barrister Mensah holding a deadly syringe below, Amara realized the terrifying truth. The law would not save Chief Olayinka. It was here to kill him. "You see," Jide hissed, clutching his bleeding shoulder where Amara had struck him with a heavy glass ashtray. He staggered forward, his face twisted in ugly rage. "There is nowhere to run, you foolish Onitsha beggar. My father owns the lawyer. Soon he will own my uncle's grave." Amara spun around, clutching the forged documents tightly. Her mind raced with the survival instincts of a girl who had hawked pure water on unforgiving streets. As Jide lunged for her throat, Amara dropped to her knees, sweeping her bare foot hard against his ankles. The arrogant boy crashed face first into the vanity table with a sickening thud and slumped to the floor, groaning in pain. Wasting no time, Amara snatched the brass key from his pocket and shoved it into the lock. Click. She burst into the dark hallway. The thick scent of fried plantains from the outdoor kitchen mocked the pure terror gripping her heart. She had to reach the chief's bedroom before the lethal venom was injected. Her bare feet slapped desperately against the polished tiles. "Papa!" she screamed, abandoning all servant etiquette. "Papa Olayinka, wake up!" She slammed her body against the mahogany door, bursting inside just as Barrister Mensah was rolling up the frail elder's sleeve. Uncle Femi stood by the bed, his fake sorrowful smile replaced by a cold, demonic sneer. "Stop!" Amara shrieked, throwing the forged documents and the empty vial onto the bed. "Papa, do not let them touch you. It is poison. He wants to kill you for the yam farms." Chief Olayinka, weak and struggling to breathe, stared at the scattered papers. His tired eyes widened at his own forged signature. "Femi, what is the meaning of this?" the old man rasped, his voice breaking with deep betrayal. "My own blood?" The psychological mask of the caring brother melted away completely. Femi snatched the syringe from the barrister. "Your blood?" Femi spat, his voice echoing with 30 years of festering jealousy. "You stole my birthright. You took the chieftaincy, the lands, and left me with scraps. The elders called me a drunk, but you were the real thief. Today the ancestors will balance the scales." "Femi, I protected you from your own greed." The chief coughed, tears slipping down his wrinkled face. "The transport business failed because you gambled it away in Lagos. I held the lands in trust to save our family name." "Lies!" Femi roared, his expensive lace agbada shaking with fury. He turned his murderous gaze to Amara, who stood fiercely between him and the bed. "And you useless village rat. I gave you the chance to die quietly by the well. Now you will die screaming." "I serve the God of justice!" Amara cried out, grabbing a heavy brass lamp from the bedside table, her spirit unyielding. "To touch him, you will have to kill me first." Femi laughed, a dry, wicked sound that chilled the suffocating room. "As you wish." He raised the deadly syringe, the dark liquid glinting maliciously in the sunlight, and lunged directly at Amara's chest. The heavy brass lamp felt like a boulder in Amara's trembling hands. Just seconds ago, she had burst into Chief Olayinka's grand bedroom, exposing Uncle Femi's forged land deeds and the corrupt Barrister Mensah. Now, 30 years of bitter, festering jealousy had finally pushed Femi over the edge. With a wicked roar, he lunged at the humble housemaid, the deadly syringe aimed straight for her chest. Amara did not shrink back. She swung the brass lamp with all the desperate strength of a girl who had fought for survival on the harsh, unforgiving streets of Onitsha. Crack! The heavy metal connected fiercely with Femi's wrist. He howled in agony, his fingers snapping open. The syringe flew from his grasp, clattering onto the polished floor tiles. But Femi's heavy momentum carried him forward. He crashed into Amara, sending them both tumbling to the ground. The smell of his expensive cologne and stale sweat was suffocating. His thick hands wrapped around her throat, squeezing with murderous intent. "I will send you to the grave myself," Femi spat, his eyes bulging with absolute madness. Barrister Mensah backed away toward the door like a terrified coward, abandoning his wealthy client. But on the bed, Chief Olayinka found a sudden fiery surge of ancestral strength. The old patriarch grabbed his heavy carved mahogany walking stick. "Leave my daughter alone, you wicked beast!" the chief roared, bringing the solid wood down violently across Femi's back. Femi gasped, the breath knocked completely from his lungs. He released Amara and scrambled backward across the floor. But in his blind panic, his heavy palm slammed down hard, right onto the needle of the fallen syringe, the plunger depressed under his own weight. The dark, unnatural venom he had meant for his brother shot directly into his own veins. Femi froze. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by Amara's ragged breathing. He slowly lifted his hand, staring in sheer horror at the empty plastic tube dangling from his flesh. "No, no, please," he choked out, his voice suddenly small and frail. Within seconds, his eyes rolled back. He clutched his chest, his expensive white lace agbada twisting as he collapsed onto the floor, paralyzed and gasping for air. Heavy footsteps pounded down the hallway. The compound guards, alerted by the shouting, burst into the bedroom. Two of them dragged a bruised and whimpering Jide by the collar. "Hold the lawyer. Do not let him escape," Chief Olayinka commanded, his voice echoing with the authority of a true elder. The guards immediately tackled Barrister Mensah to the ground. "Hand them over to the police inspector in town. As for my brother..." The chief looked down at Femi's twitching, defeated body. The earth has already judged him. He dug a grave for me, but the ancestors made him fall into it. Amara slowly picked herself up, brushing the red dust from her faded Ankara dress. Her throat was bruised, but she was alive. "Amara, come closer," Chief Olayinka whispered softly, sinking back into his pillows. He reached under his heavy mattress and pulled out a worn, sealed leather envelope. "Femi thought he could forge his way to my wealth, but my true will has been hidden here all along." He placed his trembling, warm hand over Amara's rough fingers. "I am leaving the ancestral yam farms to the village trust to feed the widows and orphans. But this house and my personal savings, they belong to you now. I am adopting you, my brave girl. You and your crippled grandmother will never hawk pure water or beg in the market again." Tears of pure relief spilled down Amara's cheeks. She fell to her knees, thanking the god of justice. The warm evening breeze swept through the compound, carrying away the bitter scent of betrayal. Outside, the poisoned well stood silent in the shadows. Tomorrow, it would be drained and purified. The greedy rot in the Adebayo family had finally been cut out, but the village would never forget the chilling tale of the wicked uncle who drank his own deadly poison.